And we're putting this to Facebook Live. All right. I see 11 o'clock on my clock here, so let's begin. For those of you joining us, my name is Andrew Sylvia. I'm the assistant editor of Manchester Inklink. We have today two candidates for the Ward 6 Aldermanic special election next week, Sebastian Sharonov and Scott Britton. Thank you for joining us both. For the rules of this debate, each candidate gets 30 minutes. There will be 9 separate categories on topics that the aldermen have been talking about over the last few years. Readers have put their questions for the candidates, and each candidate will choose the question for the other candidate. And the candidates can use their time in any way they wish. They each get 30 minutes to talk. Sebastian won the virtual coin toss before the debate here, and he selected to go second. So Scott, you will go first. Sebastian, please, we're going to start with the homelessness and affordable housing category. In that category, we had 9 questions from our readers. Please pick a question 1 through 9 for Scott.
3.
Question number 3 for Scott. Should homeless people who have migrated to Manchester to be given assistance be transported back to their last location prior to coming to Manchester, or some other option?
That's a really interesting question, and thanks for whoever submitted that. I feel like if you're a homeless individual in Manchester, you deserve to have the services that Manchester offers. I think that getting into transporting people out of Manchester back to their former community, or charging another community for a homeless member of our community goes down a real slippery slope. I equate it to, if there's a rollover accident on Elm Street, and the driver happens to be from Andover, Massachusetts, for example, do we send a bill to Andover, Massachusetts because of the services that were rendered to that accident victim, EMTs, firefighters, police officers, things like that? So if there's a homeless person that's in our community, I think that person deserves to have Manchester services, and I don't necessarily think that person needs to be relocated for any reason.
All right, Scott, on the same topic of homelessness and affordable housing, we have, like we said, 8 questions. Excuse me, not 9, it's 8. Please pick a number from 1 to 8 other than 3 for Sebastian.
2.
Number 2. Okay, the question for number 2, what advice would you give to citizens who are afraid of panhandlers?
Oh, okay, that's an interesting question. I think panhandling and homelessness in general is a huge problem in Manchester. It is at a crisis level. Panhandlers are seen on the streets all the time. And I wouldn't say citizens need to be in general afraid of the panhandlers, but it is an issue that the city has to tackle. The citizens and the business owners have to be protected from panhandlers, from being harassed. In my opinion, I think homeless individuals in Manchester have to be given the opportunity to go to the shelter. However, if they refuse to go to the shelter, or they refuse any kind of help, any kind of services that we offer them, then the next priority becomes the business owners and the citizens of Manchester that we need to protect from the homeless, from the panhandlers who harass them, I would say.
The next subject is the business climate here in Manchester. Sebastian, since you went second in the first round, you go first here. Scott, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 reader submitted questions. Please pick a number from 1 to 5 for Sebastian.
Sure. Number 5, please.
Okay. Sebastian, do you think Elm Street should be transformed into a pedestrian thoroughfare like some cities are doing and like we do during Taco Fest?
That is an interesting question, something definitely to look at for the Board of Aldermen. At this time, I don't think that there is a need to do that. We have reduced parking for the outdoor seating. We did it last summer and we're going to do that again this summer. And I think it's working out greatly. Sure, there is fewer places to park, but restaurants and businesses gain extra seating outdoors. And I think there is no need at this time to close down Elm Street altogether just for pedestrian traffic.
Sebastian, again, no, number 1 to 5, except for 5 for Scott's question.
Number 1.
Okay. It seems that New Hampshire brings in tech companies through tax breaks, but those tech companies bring in their own employees from out of state. What is your plan to create new local companies and help current ones without gentrification?
So that's a pretty complex question. So I think bringing tech companies into Manchester is important. I think it brings younger folks into our community, and I think it goes a little bit deeper too. I think if we are able to improve our infrastructure, our public transportation, things like that, I think that would keep those folks here in our community. Rather than attracting them from surrounding towns, Massachusetts, where they come to work here in Manchester and then go back outside of Manchester. So I think public transportation would do a lot to keep those younger folks here in Manchester, but give them the ability to go back and forth to Boston and other locations.
Third topic is public schools. Scott, please pick a number 1 to 5 for Sebastian's question.
Sure, number 3.
Okay. All right. Sebastian, do you believe that the school budget should be directly tied to enrollment rates? Currently, enrollment is decreasing, but budgets seem to go up.
Yes, I believe that the budget has to correspond to enrollment rates into the school district. The school district enrollment of students has been declining. In fact, it declined over 5% in the past 4 years, 4 or 5 years, but the budget keeps going up. I think there's an increase of over 9% since 2019. Currently, the school district gets about 53% of the municipal budget at $183 million. Even though the student enrollment continues to go down. So I don't believe that's the right way to allocate the money.
Sebastian, again, 1 to 5, except for 3.
5.
Scott, when the Board of School Committee asks for a bond, what is your criteria on approving or denying their request?
I'm not certain I understand that question.
So all bonding needs to go through the Board of Aldermen, and occasionally the Manchester School District asks for something to be bonded, like a school construction or some other curriculum thing. I don't know exactly what this person was talking about in particular, but I think what they're asking is if the school department comes to the Board of Aldermen and asks for something to be bonded, what would be your criteria on saying yes or no to that?
Sure. Well, generally, not knowing the exact terms of that bond, I think just generally from just a fiscal perspective, I think any sort of bond should have a return on investment. So depending on what that particular bond looked like, how it would benefit the school district, how it would certainly benefit the students and the citizens of Manchester. So I think all of those things would have to be looked at to determine the direct benefit and the direct impact on the district's staff, teachers, students, and of course the community.
Right. Section number 4, waste pickup. This has been a big issue in previous weeks. Sebastian, please pick a number from 1 to 4 for Scott.
2.
Okay. Scott, when will the city enforce the 2 bin per residence limit? Some of my neighbors seem to put out 3 or 4 bins weekly for their trash.
That's a very good question as well. So I've been asked this question from some folks in my neighborhood. I would absolutely agree in enforcing the 2 bin limit. I think what the issue could be, and I don't know this for sure, but I think what the issue might be is just general communication and having the highway department get information out to the residents. I think I don't feel like people are putting 4 and 5 bins out just to get away with something. I think people are putting 4 or 5 bins out possibly because they don't know that there's a limit. So I personally have 2 bins that I paid for, and from time to time, my 1 bin gets filled up and I put my 2nd bin out. Going back a few years, being a resident of Manchester for the past 22 years, there was a time where you could put all sorts of stuff out to the side of the street and the highway department would pick up everything. That's changed quite a bit. So I would work directly with the highway department to get an information campaign out to the residents, informing them that there is a 2 waste barrel limit to put out to the side of the street, and perhaps we could get a little creative with that and add in certain times during the year where you can put additional barrels out. That may help some folks that can't get to the landfill during the hours of operation because they're working or some other restrictions. So I think there's a creative way to look at that. Again, I don't think people are putting out multiple trash barrels just to get away with something or put one over on the city. But I think an information campaign, letting people know exactly what they're allowed to put out, when they're allowed to put it out, would go a long way. There's a lot of new residents in Manchester, and they probably figure they can put whatever they want out to the side of the street. So I think just informing the residents of what the limit is would go a long way. I think that would go a long way too with recycling as well. I think a lot of people recycle the wrong stuff. So just informing the residents would go a long way there. I'm certain of that.
Scott, again, for Sebastian, 1, 3, or 4?
How about 1?
Okay. Sebastian, it seems like small landscaping companies bring their waste back to their houses and let the city collect it. What is your plan to address this issue?
Okay, this is an interesting question. Well, first of all, if it's landscaping, this is not a regular waste. I would say it has to be picked up by yard waste removal service, which the city has proposed cuts to, by the way, for this summer, but hopefully it's going to go back to every 2 weeks. I think just like Mr. Britton, Scott was just talking about the communication about people not knowing the limitations on the two barrel rule. We can put together a little information campaign to let landscaping companies know that this is not allowed. If they continue doing that, we can investigate further and perhaps hand down some fines for that.
Scott, the next category here is city-state relations, things going on with the City Hall in Concord. For Sebastian, please pick a number from 1 to 8.
I'm picking the number?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
No worries. How about number 6? Thank you.
Okay, this is a funny one. Who is more nuts, the Board of Aldermen or the state legislature?
Well,
Can I answer this one too?
You can answer, once it's your turn, you can answer.
okay, this is a this one is definitely an interesting question. Who is more nuts? I would say overall the relationship with the Concord for the Board of Aldermen has been kind of sour. There's not a whole lot of communication going on with the state legislature. I would say if I had to absolutely pick one and answer this question, I would say the state legislature is a little bit more organized in how they handle business than the Board of Aldermen.
All right, Sebastian, for Scott, 1 to 8, except for 6.
3.
Okay, and again, Scott, as previously mentioned, you can say whatever you like, but here's the question for you.
Sure.
Mayor Craig and Governor Sununu don't seem to work well together. As an alderman, is there any way you think you can bridge the gap between them?
I agree with that question. I don't think Mayor Craig and Governor Sununu have the best relationship, and there's a lot of things that go into that, right? There's some finger pointing and some downshifting and upshifting and all that sort of stuff. I think our relationship with Concord is important in order for Manchester to get the appropriate revenue sharing from state government and things like that. I think, you know, having a good relationship there is important. I'm not certain of our current relationship, just being a private citizen at the moment, but if I had an opportunity to help bridge that gap, I would certainly want to. I think relationships just generally are important, and certainly government relationships like that are very helpful when you know, the state needs something from Manchester and Manchester needs something from the state. So hopefully I answered that question well enough. Just to get back to the other point of who's more nuts, I think the state legislature is certainly more nuts just because of sheer volume of nuttiness. But the Board of Mayor and Aldermen could certainly, there's some work to be done there as well. So I think you know, there's a lot of divisiveness and there's a lot of there's a lack of respect towards one another. So hopefully, if I'm fortunate enough to be elected, hopefully I can help change that a little bit. It's really non-productive, you know, to have divisiveness and name calling and finger pointing and all of that stuff. So you know, we're here for the residents of Manchester, and we want to be as productive as we can. And you know, that sort of stuff just really isn't helpful for anybody.
Moving on to the next category, police and fire. Scott, excuse me, Sebastian, please pick a number from 1 to 7 for Scott.
Number 6, please.
Number 6. Okay, Scott, do you think that something like what happened to George Floyd could happen here in Manchester?
I think the George Floyd situation could happen anywhere. It's terrible that it happens at all, and it seems to be happening with more and more frequency when Black people are targeted for you know, simple traffic stops, and then they're shot and killed. I think that's horrible, and it needs to be addressed, and it could absolutely happen in Manchester. I have a deep respect for Manchester's police officers, and I think they're trained very, very well to enter situations like that without overreacting. However, I also want to ensure that the Manchester Police Department, and quite frankly, every police department, has the resources, has the training they need to, you know, when they're put in situations like that, they have the training to you know, not use deadly force when deadly force isn't required. And plus, I think there's an opportunity now for us to partner with different organizations to help our police departments, so that they're not necessarily put in a position where you know, they're not trained to deal with a mental health illness, or something like that that could result in someone being killed. So a very, very important topic.
All right, Scott, please pick a number for Sebastian. Anything other than 6. So anything from 1 to 7 other than 6.
How about 3?
Okay, Sebastian. Mayor Craig said on the record that she disagrees with the defund police movement and praises the quality of policing in Manchester. What are your thoughts on that?
This is probably going to be one of the rare cases when I agree with the Mayor Craig on something. Manchester Police Department is doing a great job. I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge supporter of law enforcement in general, and I absolutely do not support defunding the police or cutting the public safety budget in any way. I guess I would like to add a little bit to Scott's question about whether something can happen similar to George Floyd's situation. I think it is certainly a possibility that something like that can happen anywhere. However, I think that Manchester Police Department is well equipped to deal with these situations. I don't think that we have a police brutality issue or targeting minorities for anything as an issue here in Manchester or New Hampshire as a whole.
This is transportation infrastructure. Scott, please pick a number from 1 to 5 for Sebastian.
I'm sorry, Andrew, what was the topic?
Transportation infrastructure.
Infrastructure, okay.
Yeah, so any
1 through 5?
Okay. Oh yeah, 1 through 5? You said 1?
1's good, yep.
Okay. Roads are in very poor condition in Manchester. What is your sustainable plan to correct this?
Okay, roads, this is something that I hear a lot every time I go door knocking here in Ward 6 on the campaign trail. I've spoken to maybe hundreds of people in Ward 6, and every single person talks about roads and the conditions that roads are in Manchester. Maybe not so much in Ward 6, but a lot of people work downtown. They have to drive around Manchester. And, a lot of roads need repairs immediately. We have certain ways to fund road construction in Manchester. We have the one of the fees that we collect is a Manchester Transportation Improvement Fee of $5, which was adopted in 1998. However, the board later cut the highway department's budget by that exact amount. So instead of it being extra money for road construction, it became the source of money. Additionally, I think we can raise money for roads without a tax cap override for once. Maybe we can increase the MTI fee with car registrations. So maybe we can, I don't know, double parking tickets downtown, something like that. It doesn't have to be through a tax cap override necessarily. Additionally, I don't believe that we should be funding roads through government bonds. For example, in FY 2020, 3 million out of the 4.5 million budget for road construction came from government bonds. A bond is essentially a loan. So yes, you invest, you sell a government bond, you raise money for road construction, and but there is no return on investment on a newly repaved road. And then this newly repaved road needs repairs down the line while we still have bond obligations down the line as well. So I don't believe it should be done through government bonds at all.
Sebastian, again, any number from 2 to 5 for Scott's question.
Let's do 2, please.
Okay, Scott, what is your stance on commuter rail transportation from Manchester to Concord and southwards to Nashua and Massachusetts?
Sure, it's a bullseye question for me. That I alluded to it before. I think commuter rail would be fantastic for Manchester. It would be fantastic for New Hampshire. I've in my day job, I travel to lots of cities across the country. I use public transportation as much as I can. In fact, I have a regional office that's in New Jersey, and I've taken it upon myself to utilize public transportation to get from my house to my office in New Jersey without utilizing an automobile. So it's possible now. It's a lot of different link ups to get there, but having a commuter rail in Manchester that can get you to Concord and down to Boston, which then connects you to the entire country or quite possibly the world would be fantastic for our community. I think it would drive up value in properties in Manchester. It would help stimulate downtown even more so. You know, it's been proven that commuter rail stations and rail stations in general in communities, you know, help them thrive. So I would be absolutely for commuter rail in Manchester.
Before we move on, I would like to respond to commuter rail to draw a little bit of contrast. I oppose having commuter rail in Manchester. First of all, one of the things is the research that the state put together. It is going to show that having commuter rail is going to be a net negative financially for Manchester and for the state as a whole. Additionally, running tracks through, I think they're going to go through Ward 9 specifically, is going to drive down property values. It's not going to increase property values at all. I mean, nobody wants to buy a house near rail tracks. So I would personally oppose commuter rail in Manchester.
The next category is the city budget and the tax cap. Sebastian, please pick a number for Scott, 1 to 7.
7.
Okay. Scott, what are your thoughts on property taxes here in Manchester?
So I've lived in Manchester for 22 years. When I first moved into our home, I thought our property taxes were high, coming from, you know, living in an apartment in Portsmouth and, you know, having a child on the way. So I thought our property taxes were high. They've gone up every year since. I'm probably paying 4 times what I paid for property taxes 22 years ago. So I know what that's like. I know the impact that has on people and families. However, you know, property taxes are important to keep our community running. They're important for our schools. They're important for our infrastructure. They're important for public safety. So do I think our taxes are high? Of course. Who wouldn't think any tax is high? Even a $5 fee for something, you know, can be determined to be unreasonable or high. But I think if you look outside of Manchester, if you leave Manchester and look at other communities, you know, I think you're getting a lot for what you pay for in taxes in Manchester. So, you know, I think there's a good return on those investments as well. And, you know, Sebastian and I probably have very differing opinions on taxes and tax caps and things like that. But yeah, I think Manchester's taxes are higher than I want them to be, but I think they're important and they you know, help our community.
Okay. Scott, please pick a number from 1 to 6 for Sebastian on this topic.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. How about 6?
Okay. All right. Is there a way I can know what my taxes are going forward? I am okay with paying taxes as long as it's going towards something, but I am concerned about wasteful spending.
Well, certainly, having the tax cap in place is it's not just a cap on property taxes collected by the city. The tax cap section 615 of the city charter actually mandates that the city has a balanced budget at the same time. Tax cap, it was designed to be a check on irresponsible spending to begin with. However, the board has chosen to override the tax cap at least 4 years in a row in the past. The problem with the tax cap override, it's not like you override it 1 year and then it goes down. This year's ceiling becomes the next year's floor. So each time you override the tax cap, your taxes are going to go up even more. So that would be the problem overriding with tax cap override.
Final category, and it looks like we're way ahead of schedule here, so we may have to circle back and do some more questions after this. This category is quality of life and civic pride. There are 5 questions here. Scott, please pick a number from 1 to 5 for Sebastian.
How about 1?
Okay. Sebastian, I assume you are a Fisher Cats fan. Who is your all-time favorite Fisher Cat?
This is a question I can't really answer.
Oh,
Unfortunately, I'm not.
scandal.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. Okay, Sebastian, again, 1 to 5.
Let's do number 3, please.
Number 3. All right. Scott, I miss the Manchester Monarchs. Is there a way the city can pursue another professional hockey team, either at SNHU Arena or another location?
Sure. So I'll go back to Sebastian's question. My favorite Fisher Cat was Travis Snyder, just because he hit mammoth home runs. I was a season ticket holder for the Fisher Cats when they first started at Gill Stadium, and to the new stadium for a few years. And then my kids got older and we got busy, and it just didn't have the time to get back down there as much as we wanted. So I'm a huge Fisher Cats fan, and can't wait for baseball to get started again in Manchester. Relative to the Monarchs, so weird situation, right? The Monarchs were essentially a AAA team for the LA Kings for a while, and the quality of hockey was fantastic, and it drew great crowds. And I think the Monarchs led their league in attendance for a few years here and there. I think when the Monarchs left and it became a lower tier quality of hockey, I think that attendance suffered, and it just wasn't quite as interesting. So to answer the question, I think Manchester should do what they can to attract another high level hockey team to Manchester. I think it's great for the community. I think it's great for downtown businesses to have the arena booked out more than once or twice a month, where there's multiple hockey games scheduled per month. And I think we should also look at attracting Hockey East tournaments and things like that, like we've done in the past. I think that's important for the community, and it also brings folks from other communities into Manchester to see what the downtown looks like and what it has to offer.
Okay, we'll circle back to the first category. And again, guys, if you have anything else you'd like to talk about, general statements, please feel free. This time is yours. Sebastian, going back to the homelessness and affordable housing category, we had 9 questions from our readers. We've already done 2 and 3. Please pick a number from 1 to 9 other than 2 or 3 for Scott.
Number 1, please. Sorry.
No problem. Scott, will you increase mental health outreach funding for the homeless?
I think that's a very important part of helping the homeless situation in Manchester. I think there's, I think providing housing first goes a long way to get the homeless folks on firm grounding, and then working with different community organizations to help them with other resources is also important. So I think there has to be a huge collaborative approach to addressing the homeless issue. I think it involves multiple stakeholders. I think the stakeholders also, part of that is the homeless population themselves. I think it's a problem that needs to be addressed. I think it's not just a problem in Manchester. I think there's lots of communities in the state that face this problem. And there's lots of states in this country that face this problem. So it can't just be round them out and push them somewhere else. That's certainly not a solution. And quite frankly, it's not appropriate. So, I think there has to be a collaborative approach to this, and it has to be all hands on deck, and, money has to be spent.
Scott, for Sebastian's question on this category, please pick a number from 4 to 9.
4 to 9. How about 7?
Okay. 7. Sebastian, are there jobs available for homeless people that can be given to get them off the streets?
Well, certainly one of the examples that I can bring up, this is actually going to be my proposal as a part of the homeless plan, is to give certain homeless individuals or all homeless individuals a certain job specifically to pick up litter around Manchester. We have a huge problem with litter. I don't know if Mr. Jim O'Connell is watching this. The city is not doing such a great job with litter, contrary to what he said on Facebook. Cleaning up the streets. I mean, I've personally done a lot of community trail pickups, and there's litter bags upon bags. We just left them at the streets for the DPW to pick up. But anyway, going back to the point of giving homeless individuals some sort of employment, for example, cleaning up our streets, we don't have to pay them $15 an hour like we start for DPW laborers, but we can pay them state minimum wage, which would be like $7.25 to help clean up the city. This way, we get a cleaner Manchester, and homeless individuals, they get some feeling of dignity of being employed. So that this would be like one example that we can help with homelessness crisis, as given homeless individuals some sort of employment.
Going back to the business climate category, Scott, please pick 2, 3, or 4 for Sebastian.
How about 4?
Okay. Sebastian, the Mall of New Hampshire feels emptier than it once was, likely due to delivery companies like Amazon attacking brick and mortar stores. What are your ideas to help retail stores there at the mall and elsewhere in the city?
Sure, this is definitely something to look at. This is an interesting question, a good question for the board to look at. I think that big retailers like Amazon are certainly having a lot of negative effect on stores at the Mall of New Hampshire and businesses across Manchester as a whole. And then the COVID-19 pandemic with the lockdowns certainly didn't help that as well. I think Manchester has a friendly, business-friendly climate, business-friendly environment, and we can certainly look at some proposals to help businesses in Manchester thrive and protect them from certain negative effects that have, well, homelessness, for example, is one of them that affects businesses. For example, if you're a restaurant owner on Elm Street, you know, you don't want your customers being seated outside and being harassed by panhandlers on the street. So this is definitely something to look at for the board to tackle. But this requires more data. This requires looking at more numbers. This is not, there's not going to be a straightforward answer for that.
Sebastian, for Scott, number 2 or number 3?
Number 2, please.
Okay. Scott, what are the top 3 factors bringing business downtown to Manchester? Excuse me, downtown Manchester.
What are the top 3 factors? Is that what you said?
For business bringing business downtown Manchester.
Yeah, so I think this goes back to one of your earlier questions about opening or closing down Elm Street for you know, to make it pedestrian friendly. I'm not necessarily opposed to closing down Elm Street from time to time to make it more of a community event. Like Taco Tuesday and some other things. I think that's important for businesses to have a lot of people come down and find out what Elm Street is really about. There's lots of communities that do that. I think that would go a long way just to improving Elm Street in general. So, you know, I think businesses would be interested in something like that. I frequent businesses on Elm Street quite a bit, a lot more so prior to COVID, and hopefully I'm getting my second vaccine later today. So hopefully, you know, in a few weeks, I'll be a little more comfortable going to restaurants again and some of these shops. But there's some really great places down on Elm Street, and people need to know that they're there. And, you know, as those start to do well, other businesses will follow. So I think there's a real big opportunity to increase foot traffic downtown, increase businesses, and it just doesn't have to be nightlife and bars and restaurants. There's a real big opportunity there for a lot of shops to move in, and I think Manchester would like that.
All right, we're going to the public schools
Excuse
category
me,
again. I'm sorry.
before
Yeah,
we
you,
move on, can I
yeah,
add
you can
something?
respond. Sure.
Yes, I'd like to respond to making Elm Street pedestrian. Scott said he would be open to that. The reason why I would be opposed to closing down Elm Street just for pedestrian traffic, because it wasn't designed to be exclusively pedestrian street, like for example, Church Street in Burlington, Vermont. That's one. It's going to affect traffic downtown. That's going to be an issue. Second of all, it's going to affect parking revenue for the city. The city collects a lot of revenue from parking downtown. If you just close down Elm Street, the city is going to lose out on a lot of revenue in parking. So that would be those two reasons. That's something I would cite in opposition to making Elm Street just pedestrian.
Just one quick point, Andrew, just to get back, just to be clear, I'm not proposing closing down Elm Street for pedestrian traffic like Church Street in Burlington. My daughter goes to the University of Vermont, so I know Church Street well. It's a great place. That's not what I'm proposing at all. However, I think, you know, there could be a few dates throughout the year where Elm Street can be closed to vehicle traffic. And we could work with the police department and the highway department to rotate traffic in and around Elm Street for those few times that we could close it down to make it more of a festival atmosphere.
All right, we're going back to the public schools category. Sebastian, for Scott, question number 1, number 2, or number 4?
Number 4, please.
Okay, Scott, should the school district be independent of the city, a department of the city, or something else, or do you believe that the status quo should be remaining?
Also an interesting question. So I'm not sure where I stand on this particular topic. I know it's been a topic for a number of years. I think the school district are the experts in what they need and how best to serve the students of the school district. So I would tend to lead towards the schools making those decisions. However, personally, I'm sort of on the fence about that right now.
Okay, Scott, number 1 or number 2 for Sebastian?
We'll go with 2.
Number 2, Scott, Sebastian, how will you address the chronic underfunding of our schools?
I don't think I agree with the question to begin with. Chronic underfunding of our schools. The school district's budget is 53% of the municipal budget at $183 million, despite the fact that student enrollment continues to decline. It has declined for over 5% in the past 5 years. So at this time, I personally don't see the schools being underfunded. However, if there is some kind of need that I would see on the board that the schools indeed need more funding, we would be I would be open to looking a little bit more into giving schools more money. But at this time, I don't think they need that, considering the student enrollment is down.
Going back to yard waste, Scott, for Sebastian, question number 3 or question number 4?
It was interesting how you introed that, going back to yard waste. Number 3, please.
Okay, Sebastian, how can you get more citizens involved in recycling during the city?
Okay, this is a very interesting question. I think a lot of people are actually open to recycling. Nobody just doesn't want to recycle. I think it just takes a little bit information campaign and a little bit of encouragement, and more citizens of Manchester will be open to recycling. I don't think it's going to be an issue at all.
All right, so we only have one more question. Oh, sorry. Yep.
Yeah, just one quick thing on recycling. That recycling is important to me. Obviously, I think an informational campaign on what exactly we do recycle and what we don't recycle is also important. there's a lot of folks that throw a lot of stuff in those recycle bins, and a lot of that stuff can't be recycled. So further to my earlier comment about the amount of trash barrels we can put out to the side of the road, I think an informational campaign, not just with the highway department, but with lots of our departments, right? Communication and information is important for the citizens of Manchester. So I think information campaigns on a lot of things would go a long way in helping people, A, recycle, like Sebastian said, B, recycle the right things. Because if we're recycling all sorts of things and then it goes to a sorting facility, and that sorting facility has to waste time and energy on sorting out stuff that can't be recycled, that seems really counterproductive to what we're trying to do here. So yeah, I think recycling certainly is important, but recycling the right things makes a big difference.
Okay. All right, and you also get the last question in the yard waste category, since there's only one left. How many times do you think the city should pick up yard waste annually?
Interesting question. I know that's a hot topic in the city these days. I think the system that we had in place seemed to work well. I'm lucky enough to have a yard with the ability to compost a lot of my yard waste, so that's helpful for me. But I know a lot of folks don't have that opportunity. So I think during the summer months, it's important to pick up yard waste if people are going through the effort to bag them up and put them out to the side of the road. I think we need to pick it up. However, those sorts of things come at a cost, right? So we have to understand that there's kind of a push-pull there. You can't say on one hand, I don't want to spend money on this project that doesn't affect me, but I want to spend money on this project that does affect me. So maybe there's a creative way to look at yard waste and how that's picked up and how people gather it and use it and all that sort of stuff. So I think there's some room there to think creatively about yard waste and how we get it from our yards to another place.
Just to respond to that real quick, I think we're not talking about increasing yard waste pickup from the once every 2 weeks instead of once every month. We were talking about the city making cuts to the yard waste pickup from every 2 weeks to once a month. I think if we just keep the system that we have in place, and we did through June, and I think we're gonna get it again next fiscal year, yard waste pickup in the summer picked up every 2 weeks. I think that would be great. I think it is a hot button issue, especially here in Ward 6, and I just don't support any cuts to this service at this time. We're not talking about increasing yard waste pickup.
Yeah, I actually agree with Sebastian on that. I think what was in place prior seemed to work for everybody. So decreasing that could be problematic, but I think there's ways we can look at just generally reducing yard waste, not necessarily the pickups, and taking care of it more efficiently and effectively.
Okay. Going on back to the city and state relations category. Scott, this question is for you. Sebastian, please pick a number from 1 to 8, except for 3 or 6.
Number 8, please.
Number 8. Okay. Scott, is there anything that the city can do in regard to the state laws about personal recognizance bail?
Well, that's that's a question I don't know as though I have enough information to comment on. I'm not as familiar as I need to be on that topic, so I'll have to bump that one.
Okay.
I'd like to respond to that.
Sure.
So state law typically dictates what charges the county prosecutor can press. Police department, Manchester Police Department, they arrest an individual, they refer for prosecution, and then it is state law that eventually lets an individual with pending charges out of jail on personal recognizance bail. So unfortunately, the city has no power to go against it.
Scott, for Sebastian, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, or number 7?
3.
But we already did 3.
Oh, I'm sorry. What were the numbers again?
My apologies. 1, 2, 4, 5, or 7. I think I said 3, so it's my fault. I apologize.
How about 4?
Okay. Sebastian, do you believe that the city should get more aid from the state?
I certainly do. Manchester cannot be left alone to fend off for themselves. We have a lot of issues going on, and the state could be a little bit more helpful. However, that requires communication with of the board with the state legislature. And like I said in the first question that I answered on the first round of questions, that the relationship of the Board of Aldermen with the state legislature has been kind of sour. I know Chris Sununu, Governor Sununu has invited the board and the mayor to meet with them in Concord a couple of years ago, and the mayor said no. Yeah, I think that requires communication, and Manchester could certainly use more help from the state.
Going back to the police and fire category, we're running out of time, so thank you again for this. We have 10 more minutes. And full disclosure, the 7th question from readers on the police and fire category actually was also about personal recognizance bail, so we'll skip that. Scott, for Sebastian, any number through 1 through 6, except for 3 or 6.
4.
Okay. Sebastian, how will you stop all the shootings that seem to be going on in Manchester?
Well, this is an interesting question. I think this is a this issue that we have is not unique just to Manchester. This is happening all across the country, and we need to look at other cities, how they're doing it, perhaps for for examples, if they're successful and implement them here. I think what's going to tackle crime in general is we need to start small. We need to start with traffic law enforcement. We need to enforce quality of life offenses, and eventually crime is going to go down in general. Regarding shooting, I think we need to improve police response, investigations, and stuff like that. I think Manchester Police Department is doing a fantastic job responding to 911 calls and calls for service in general in emergencies. However, I think more needs to be done to prevent those from happening in the first place.
Sebastian, for Scott in the police and fire category, 1, 2, or 5?
Number 1, please.
Okay. Scott, there are loud motorcycles and pickup trucks in my neighborhood that think they are above the law. How do you plan on resolving this? I would say a new noise ordinance, but it feels like many laws are not enforced.
That's a great question. In fact, that question has been posed to me a number of times when I've been out knocking on doors and talking to voters. People are concerned about racing on our streets. People are concerned with the noisiness of traffic in general, and of course, racing cars and things down streets, neighborhood streets, and streets like Candia Road. It's troublesome for folks that live nearby. I think it would go a long way to understanding where those certain areas are, where the certain problems are, and working with the police department to figure out a way to either enforce those traffic laws or enforce noise ordinances and things like that. But I alluded to it before. Communication is important, and I've met with the police department, the fire department, the teachers union, and some other folks. And what they've explained back to me is, they don't necessarily know things are happening, and I'm going to make it a point to talk with the residents in Ward 6 to understand what their concerns are and bring those concerns to the folks that can help them, and work collaboratively to make sure that their needs are addressed. Can I fix every problem? Of course not. Can I satisfy everybody's needs? Of course not. But I would certainly look forward to understanding what folks' concerns are in their neighborhood and either pointing them in the right direction or holding their hand and getting them the help that they need.
Like to add to that a little bit.
Sure.
So loud motorcycles and trucks going through neighborhoods is a traffic concern, and unfortunately, Manchester Police Department only has 3 traffic police officers for the
Right.
entire for the entire city. So, sure, we have plenty of ordinances. You see a lot of signs that say no trucks going through a residential street, $300 fine. But is it actually enforced? Well, no, not really, because Manchester Police Department just doesn't have the personnel. We only have 3 traffic police officers. So I think maybe increasing the budget of Manchester Police Department, adding more traffic police officers to the force could get some kind of solutions to these issues. But this is definitely something to look at when at the board.
Yeah, I agree. It's been a big topic talking to voters, and I'm sure Sebastian's heard the same. It's definitely something that needs to be addressed.
Going back to the transportation infrastructure category, Sebastian, for Scott, number 3 or number 4, and I apologize. The question number 5 actually had to do with the closing down of Elm Street as well, since we already discussed that. Number 3, number 4.
Number 3, please.
Okay, Scott, do you believe bus routes should be expanded?
I do. If you guys can't tell, I'm a big proponent of public transportation. So I think in my neighborhood off of Bodwell Road, I think at one time we had a bus route that generally came down to the apartment complexes and things along Bodwell Road. I believe, and I'm not certain of this, but I believe that route no longer exists. So yeah, I think public transportation is important for lots of people. So however we can work with the transit authority to ensure that our residents have bus routes if they're needed is important. I would definitely be in favor of expanding that if it makes fiscal sense.
Okay, and the last question in the transportation infrastructure category for Sebastian. What is your opinion on putting more bicycle lanes downtown?
This is an interesting question. I think bicycle lanes. I'm a supporter of people using bicycles every now and then. However, we need to look at whether bicycle lanes actually slow down vehicular traffic. And for example, on Maple Street, it used to be 2 lanes. Now it's down to 1 lane because there's a bike lane and there's parking on the side there north of Bridge Street. I think we need to look at each street on a case-by-case basis and see if there is enough bike traffic going on that street to see if it renders a bike lane necessary. I don't think we should be just slapping bike lanes on every single street downtown.
Going back to the city budget and tax cap category, Scott, for Sebastian, 1 through 5.
Number 2, please.
Number 2. All right, this one is another kind of funny one. I don't know if it's exactly accurate, but we'll try to ask it anyway. If the Granite Street Bridge fell into the Merrimack River, would you vote to override the tax cap to rebuild it? I don't think that's how the tax cap works, but if it came down to that, if you had to override the tax cap to rebuild the bridge, I guess, what would your opinion on that be?
Okay, so I've had a lot of conversations in Ward 6 about tax cap override, and generally people are opposed to overriding the tax cap. Myself, I oppose overriding the tax cap for any reason, including this would be this example, because this sounds like an emergency. This is going to create an emergency for the city in terms of traffic, in terms of everything else if the bridge just collapses. Typically in emergencies, the local municipalities get grants from the state government, from the federal government. Is it guaranteed? Absolutely no. But is it unreasonable to expect a grant? Well, no, it's not unreasonable because grants are typically handed down in nearly 100% of the time, COVID-19 being a global pandemic, global emergency. And what happened there, we got $44 million from the American Rescue Act. to help with our local needs. So in that particular scenario, or in any scenario, I do not support overriding the tax cap at all for any reason.
Sebastian, for Scott, this might be our last question. 1, 3, 4, or 5?
Number 1, please.
Okay. Scott, how do you plan to do everything you want without raising taxes?
I think that by working hard and collaboratively as a board with all the different department heads and all the different departments within the city, I think we can have everything that we require, that we need, and possibly what we want without overriding the tax cap.
Okay. All right. That looks like all the time we have. And I have to admit, I have one answer to the question about the favorite Fisher cat. One time, Zach Stewart actually jump-started my car. So I'll have to admit he's my favorite Fisher cat of all time. So thank you so much for joining us guys today. Again, my name is Andrew Sylvia. I'm the assistant editor of Manchester Inkling. This has been the Ward 6 Aldermanic special election debate. Please get out to the polls next week. We will have this debate rebroadcast later. Please go to Manchester Public Access TV tonight at 7 p.m. Channel 22. We'll also have it at manchesterinkling.com. Thank you so much for joining us, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Vote on May 4th.
See you then.
Thank you.